the speech that nearly changed the world forever. On October 22, 1962, millions of Americans gathered around their television sets, unaware that they were about to witness one of the most important speeches in human history. For nearly 2 weeks, the United States government had kept an extraordinary secret. American U-2 spy planes flying over Cuba had captured unmistakable evidence that the Soviet Union was secretly building nuclear missile bases on the island.
Neither the United States of America nor the world community of nations can tolerate deliberate deception and offensive threats on the part of any nation, large or small. We no longer live in a world where only the actual firing of weapons represents a sufficient challenge to a nation's security to constitute maximum peril. Nuclear weapons are so destructive and ballistic missiles are so swift that any substantially increased possibility of their use or any sudden change in their deployment may well be regarded as a definite threat to peace.
These were not ordinary military installations. They were launch sites capable of delivering nuclear warheads to major American cities in just a matter of minutes.
Upsetting the precarious status quo, which ensured that these weapons would not be used in the absence of some vital challenge. Our own strategic missiles have never been transferred to the territory of any other nation.
The discovery stunned President John F. Kennedy and his closest advisors. Only 90 miles separated Cuba from the coast of Florida. For the first time, the continental United States faced the immediate threat of nearby nuclear missiles controlled by its greatest Cold War rival.
This sudden, clandestine decision to station strategic weapons for the first time outside of Soviet soil is a deliberately provocative and unjustified change in the status quo, which cannot be accepted by this country.
Inside the White House, the atmosphere was tense. Military leaders urged an immediate airstrike to destroy the missile sites before they became operational. Others warned that such an attack could trigger a full-scale war with the Soviet Union. Every decision carried unimaginable consequences. A single mistake could ignite a nuclear conflict unlike anything the world had ever seen.
The goal must be to prevent the use of these missiles against this or any other country, and to secure their withdrawal or elimination from the Western Hemisphere. Our policy has been one of patience and restraint, as befits a peaceful and powerful nation which leads a worldwide alliance. We have been determined not to be diverted from our central concerns by mere irritants and fanatics. But now further action is required, and it is underway, and these actions may only be the beginning.
For 13 days, Kennedy and his advisors debated every possible option behind closed doors. The world continued with daily life, completely unaware of how close it was to catastrophe. Finally, on the evening of October 22nd, President Kennedy addressed the nation from the White House. His words would be broadcast across the globe. In a calm but unmistakably serious tone, Kennedy revealed that Soviet nuclear missile sites had been discovered in Cuba. He announced a naval quarantine around the island, ordering the U.S. Navy to stop and inspect ships carrying military equipment to Cuba. He also delivered one of the strongest warnings ever issued by an American president. Kennedy declared that any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere would be regarded as an attack by the Soviet Union itself, requiring a full retaliatory response from the United States. It was a message heard not only by the American people, but by Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. The world waited. American military forces moved to their highest levels of readiness. Nuclear bombers stood prepared for immediate deployment. Missile crews remained on constant alert.
Under the Organization of American States, to consider this threat to hemispheric security and to invoke Articles 6 and 8 of the Rio Treaty in support of all necessary action. The United Nations Charter allows for regional security arrangements, and the nations of this hemisphere decided long ago against the military presence of outside powers. Our other allies around the world have also been alerted.
Families across the United States feared that war could begin at any moment. Then came the most dangerous phase of the crisis.
We have in the past made strenuous efforts to limit the spread of nuclear weapons. We have proposed the elimination of all arms and military bases in a fair and effective disarmament treaty. We are prepared to discuss new proposals for the removal of tensions on both sides, including the possibilities of a genuinely independent Cuba, free to determine its own destiny. We have no wish to war with the Soviet Union, for we are a peaceful people who desire to live in peace with all other peoples. But it is difficult to settle or even discuss these problems in an atmosphere of intimidation. That is why this latest Soviet threat, or any other threat, which is made either independently or in response to our actions this week, must and will be met with determination. Any hostile move anywhere in the world against the safety and freedom of peoples to whom we are committed, including in particular the brave people of West Berlin, will be met by whatever action is needed. Finally, I want to say a few words to the captive people of Cuba, to whom this speech is being directly carried by special radio facilities. I speak to you as a friend, as one who knows of your deep attachment to your fatherland, as one who shares your aspirations for liberty and justice for all. And I have watched, and the American people have watched, with deep sorrow, how your nationalist revolution was betrayed and how your fatherland fell under foreign domination.
Soviet cargo ships carrying military supplies approached the American naval blockade. If either side fired the first shot, the conflict could rapidly escalate into nuclear war. Fortunately, diplomacy prevailed. After days of secret negotiations and intense pressure, Khrushchev agreed to remove the Soviet missiles from Cuba. In return, the United States publicly pledged not to invade Cuba and privately agreed to remove its own nuclear missiles from Turkey. The crisis ended without a single nuclear weapon being launched. Historians continue to describe the Cuban Missile Crisis as the closest humanity has ever come to global nuclear war. The decisions made during those 13 days changed international relations forever and led to new efforts to improve communication between Washington and Moscow, including the famous hotline established to prevent future misunderstandings.
Citizens, let no one doubt that this is a difficult and dangerous effort on which we have set out. No one can foresee precisely what course it will take, or what costs or casualties will be incurred. Many months of sacrifice and self-discipline lie ahead, months in which both our patience and our will be tested, months in which many threats and denunciations will keep us aware of our dangers. But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing. The path we have chosen for the present is full of hazards, as all paths are. But it is the one most consistent with our character and courage as a nation and our commitments around the world. The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it.
It is a moment frozen in history, a moment when every word carried enormous weight, a moment when diplomacy stood between civilization and destruction. This is President John F. Kennedy's historic White House address during the Cuban Missile Crisis.